Vegas 103 takes place this weekend, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you my exact predictions for how I think every fight on the card is going to play out. So without further ado, let's get into the picks. As always, I like to look at my past week's performance to see what we can improve upon, and, you know, on the surface, it looks like I might need to put on the donkey mask, but, you know, 6-6 on a card like this, I don't think it was that bad. Let's go through the losses top to bottom. Henry Cejudo, I mean, honestly, betting a bantamweight that's above 35, that is probably a no-go from here on out. So there's that. Jane Matsumoto, I actually think he won this fight from control time and wrestling. So I don't hate the pick, but I guess the value was on Rob Font considering how close it was. Melsik Bagdasaryan, I have picked the biggest underdog on the card for 3 straight cards, and 3 straight cards, they have just gotten swept. So I'm going to probably stop doing that. Ibo Aslan, I was a sheep. I fell for the fact that he's just a powerhouse, and turns out he actually got fraud checked. He actually did, because Jan Kudalaba was the first person Ibo Aslan has fought that's like legit, and so he actually got fraud checked. Andre Fili, he basically put himself into a guillotine choke. That was kind of crazy to watch. He went for the takedown, and then when he got taken down, he like moved Melky Costa's arm in a certain way to get him even tighter into the guillotine. I'm not saying it's rigged. I'm not saying he bet against himself, but that was awfully suspicious behavior. And then Javid Basharat, you know, if you look at the picks, we were 3-0 to start the card. You know, Austin Vanderford was a great dog shot. Ruzaboy was free. Bukowskis was free. And then Basharat, once he got KO'd clean in round 1, I just had a feeling that this card was going to be not good for picks. So, yep, those are my picks for last week. And then this week, I went deep into the lab. So, I actually am pretty confident this week. The sweep is likely, so let's get into the picks. First fight on the card, we got Charles Johnson taking on Ramazan Temurov. And in this fight, it's going to come down to Charles Johnson's technicality against Ramazan's ferocity. Ramazan is 18-2, multiple knockouts and finishes on his record, and he's coming off a knockout on CJ Vergara, which happened 4 months ago. But if we're being honest, CJ Vergara should not be in the UFC, number 1. No offense to CJ Vergara. Number 2, CJ Vergara, whenever he's involved in any type of a striking battle, which he is not doing well in, he just runs away. He just runs. Very weird fighting style, and Ramazan was able to track him down and get the KO. Now, against a guy like Charles Johnson, I'm not sure if he's going to find the same success. Now, Charles Johnson, most of his losses are not by finish. They're usually by decision, okay? And the thing about Charles Johnson, he's not really chinny. His cardio is epic. That's one of his best weapons. So, if you're going to back Ramazan, you're just banking on the fact that he's going to hit Johnson with big shots. Charles Johnson has loads of UFC experience. He might be older by 6 years, but that he has not been slowing down. At the lower weight classes, you might think that a 6-year age gap is bad, but with Charles Johnson, he breaks those barriers. He's the outlier of the division. I simply think in this matchup, he's going to outpace and outwork Ramazan. I think Ramazan is going to get frustrated with all the overhands that he keeps missing, and I just think Charles Johnson is going to win a pretty clean decision. Charles Johnson needs to win every minute to win this, while Ramazan only needs to land the big shot. So, and Ramazan also doesn't really have a grappling or wrestling background to defeat Charles Johnson, and most of Charles Johnson's UFC losses are against guys who take him down relentlessly. So for all those reasons, and Charles Johnson is the underdog, I will be taking Charles Johnson to win by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Montana De La Rosa taking on Luana Carolina, and I got roasted last time I predicted a Luana Carolina fight. I predicted her to defeat Lucy Pudilova, and the reasoning I gave was Luana Carolina just has more dog in her. That was what I said last time, and you know what? I'm going to double down, and I'm going to say the same reasoning here. I think Luana Carolina straight up wins this matchup because she has more dog in her, okay? Montana De La Rosa's striking is not that good. She comes from a wrestling, grappling background, and in the UFC, that's what she tries to do. She tries to pitter-patter her strikes so that she gets close enough to grab you and turn it into a full-on grappling match. Now, Luana Carolina, she's done well against those types of fighters. Lucy Pudilova was a similar type where she just wanted to get in for grappling. Carolina, you know, stuffed most of the takedowns. Against Stoliarenko, same thing. Stoliarenko's trying to get the fight to the mat, and Luana Carolina finished her. Ivana Petrovic, another person who's trying to take Carolina down, and Carolina stuffs the takedowns and outlands Petrovic on the feet. I think the same thing is going to happen here. I would be very surprised if De La Rosa pulls off the victory. Also, De La Rosa, low-key, should have lost to Andrea Lee in her last fight. And if that was the case, I think the odds here would be like minus 300 Carolina, simply because De La Rosa would have a 4-fight losing streak and her UFC prospects would not be a thing. So for all those reasons, I'm going with the same reasoning. Luana Carolina is a female that I like to put money on and pick, so give me Luana Carolina yet again to win by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Lucas Almeida taking on Danny Silva, and I am going with the underdog in this matchup with Lucas Almeida. Now, Danny Silva, he's a good prospect, okay? I went back and watched his fights. Against Josh Culibao, he was getting rocked on the feet. You know, he was landing good combos against the cage on Culibao at first, but once Culibao actually fired back at him, Danny Silva started getting wobbled, and then Danny Silva became a full-time wrestler. He got 4 takedowns. I think he shot for like 10 plus. That is not Danny Silva's game, but I see a lot of people saying, oh, Danny Silva against Culibao, he showed me he has takedowns he can go to. That's who he is, Danny Silva. He can utilize... That's not who Danny Silva is. He can't utilize the wrestling normally, okay? Josh Culibao, not the best takedown defense. He gets taken down by almost every guy he fights, including Ricardo Ramos. And Danny Silva was just able to outwork him and get those takedowns. Now, against a guy like Lucas Almeida, I don't think that same strategy is going to work. I think Danny Silva's striking leaves a little bit to be desired. He did put up 200 plus significant strikes in his Contender Series fight, which made a lot of people, you know, turned on to Danny Silva. But in this specific matchup, Lucas Almeida, he might be a little bit chinny. He did get KO'd by Andre Fili, but that was because he just fought recklessly and just went into the pocket like a reckless madman. He showed since then that he can fight a disciplined fight, like against Timmy Kwamba, which I think is a very similar matchup to here. Timmy Kwamba and Danny Silva are both primarily strikers, but both guys, once they get hit, they start shooting for the legs. I think that's going to happen here. I think Danny Silva is going to start out confident on the feet, right? Lucas Almeida is going to hit Danny Silva with some type of big shot. Danny Silva is going to be like, oh my, I'm now Daniel Cormier. And then Danny Silva is going to shoot in for a bunch of takedowns. Lucas Almeida is going to stuff a majority of them. And I think Lucas Almeida actually can find the KO finish. Hot take. I see a finish happening here. So for all those reasons, Lucas Almeida has great striking, and he's Brazilian, so he probably has some type of guillotine if Danny Silva shoots in very lazily. So enough meat on the bone for me to take Lucas Almeida by round 2 KO. Next fight on the card, we have Andrea Lee taking on JJ Aldrich, and yet another fight where I'm taking the underdog, okay? Usually in women's MMA, lately I've been good. I promise I've been good. I've been on Santa's nice list, okay? I've been taking all the women's favorites except for Bruna Brazil. That was an outlier, okay? I thought Kong Wang was mid, but turns out she might actually be good. I've taken all the women's favorites, but now I'm presented with something that, you know, there's literally zero case to be made for JJ Aldrich. Literally zero. The only case I can make for JJ Aldrich would be the age gap, but JJ Aldrich herself is nearly 33 years old. Andrea Lee is 36, so they're both kind of aging, all right? They're both kind of at the tail end of their careers. Andrea Lee, yeah, you see it right there, 5 straight L's. But let's dig into these L's, all right? Vivian Araújo, she took her down and was just quicker on the feet. Macy Barber, split decision loss. Macy Barber, one of the ferocious fighters in the flyweight women's division, and Andrea Lee nearly won that fight. Natalia Silva, it's hard to beat Natalia Silva, so, you know, she would destroy JJ Aldrich. Natalia Silva was a quicker striker. Miranda Maverick just took down Andrea Lee. Montana De La Rosa split loss. I think Andrea Lee probably should have won that fight based on damage. So now, can JJ Aldrich do any of that? Can she damage Andrea Lee on the feet? I don't think so. Can she take Andrea Lee down? I don't think so. If you look back at JJ Aldrich's fight against Veronica Hardy, I think it can go very similarly. I think JJ Aldrich is going to just press Andrea Lee up against the cage, and every time there's a mini separation, Andrea Lee is going to land something slightly big. They're going to clinch again. Andrea Lee lands slightly big, clinch again. Maybe Aldrich gets a takedown. But I think Andrea Lee is just going to land more damage. That's basically it. And she's plus 170. So, Andrea Lee by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Douglas Silva de Andrade taking on John Sexy Mexi Castaneda. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I am done betting on bantamweights over the age of 35 years old. Douglas Silva de Andrade happens to fall under that purview. He is 39, nearly 40, about to fight again in the bantamweight division. So here's the thing about Silva de Andrade. You can go back in the tape and you can see that there was a time where Silva was like 26-1. Like, he had a crazy record. He comes to the UFC, gets a couple good finishes. He has a couple fights where he just gets taken down at will. But now he's about to turn 40. Tape study doesn't really work for a guy who's about to turn 40. You can only really go off their last performance. And against Miles Johns, this guy didn't even land 30 significant strikes over the course of 3 rounds. And it's not because Miles Johns was shooting takedowns. This guy just has very low output now. He's slow to the punch. I mean, Castaneda, I think, is going to do very bad things to Douglas Silva de Andrade. Castaneda has the takedowns in his arsenal, and I think he honestly has better striking and more powerful striking, and he's going to be the quicker guy on the feet. Minus 230 is not even terrible odds. I think Castaneda should be closer to like minus 350. I just think he beats Silva in every facet of MMA. The only path I see Silva having is potentially some type of weird spinning attack or just like a flying knee or something crazy, like a Johnny Walker type knockout. Like, besides that, Castaneda wins everywhere. Give me John Castaneda by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Ricardo Ramos taking on Kape Mariscal. Now, another fight where I was like, oh geez, am I really going to take Ricardo Ramos? Am I really going to take a dog shot again? And after further review, the answer is no. Okay, Kape Mariscal, he's good at weaponizing cardio. That's his main thing. He will, chain together takedown after takedown. And if the takedowns don't work, sometimes he just is okay to strike. And his striking is very powerful as well. Now, the thing about Kape is he fought someone very similar to Ricardo Ramos. And I would say Morgan Charriere. And in that one, the takedowns weren't really working for either guy. And the fight kind of stayed at a distance, but Kape was just landing bigger shots here and there to edge out the decision victory. Now, in this one, Ricardo Ramos is always live for a round 1 finish, because the thing about him is that he just has 0 gas tank. After round 1, his gas tank falls off a cliff. Yes, he did defeat Josh Culibao last fight, and yes, it was because he won round 3 with the takedown. But if you actually examine that fight, Culibao, I don't know how he lost. Culibao was destroying this guy on the feet, and then Culibao would just like get caught in like a rear naked choke, and then Ricardo would win the round because of a sub attempt. Like, that's not gonna happen here. Okay, Chepe's not getting tapped out, I don't believe, and Chepe's not getting knocked out. So I just don't see a path to victory for Ramos. Maybe like he just like jumps into the octagon, like the first exchange he fakes the glove tap, but then like he goes under Kape, grabs his back. That's the only scenario. So, yeah, Kape rightful favorite. I'm going to take him by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Danny Barlow taking on Sam Patterson. Now, Danny Barlow in his last fight wasn't really that impressive. He beat Nikolai Veretennikov by a split decision. But I'm going to chalk that up to him being sick. He did say that he was suffering from some health issues prior to the fight on the build-up, so I'm going to chalk that up to that. And I'm also going to chalk that up to, Veretennikov having a good chin, because, Danny Barlow was landing some good shots in that fight. Now, in this one, the problem with picking Sam Patterson is that Sam Patterson is usually good because he has a long reach. But in this one, he's only 1 inch taller than Danny Barlow. And he actually has the reach disadvantage. First time in his career, he's fighting someone where he has the reach disadvantage. Those are the things that make Sam Patterson good, and neither of those things are working in his favor in this matchup. Sam Patterson also has that long neck, and he's pretty chinny because of that long neck. He got knocked out by Yanal Ashmouz very cleanly on the first punching exchange. If Sam Patterson isn't trying to shoot takedowns or get this into the clinch as soon as possible, I think Danny Barlow is going to knock him out as soon as possible. I'm giving Sam Patterson a little benefit of the doubt by saying round 2 KO. But this has all the makings for a Danny Barlow finish. He has Patterson beat in all the departments that Patterson is usually good at. So for all those reasons, Danny Barlow by round 2 KO. Next fight on the card, we have William the Jaguar Gomis taking on Hyder Amil. And I'm in a rough spot, guys, because I've picked these guys' fights pretty successfully. As you can see, they both won their last 5. And most of these fights, they were pretty big underdogs. Like, for example, Hyder against Young Lee. He was like plus 300. I slammed him. Slammed him. Made piles. Mountains. William Gomis against Joe Anderson Brito. He was like plus 300. I slammed him. Made piles. Made mountains. Now, the problem here is that they're fighting each other, okay? Let's just look at the fundamentals. Gomis is 7 years younger. That's crazy. Hyder is about to turn 35 in one of the lower weight classes of the UFC. Right off the bat, red flag. Secondly speaking, William Gomis is just very good at distance striking and keeping things out of range. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage and nearly a 5-inch height advantage. So this plays right into Gomis' cards. Hyder is not going to shoot takedowns, which has been Gomis' one of his main weaknesses, is the takedown and the ground game overall. Hyder is not going to do that. So if anyone's shooting takedowns, I actually think Gomis will be the one doing that. I think Gomis just has more paths to victory, you know? Like, I've seen Gomis get some good rear naked choke, good back takes, okay? And I've yet to see Gomis, like, outstruck on the feet. Like, even against Brito, who's a very similar fighter to Hyder because, you know, short, stocky, powerful punchers. Even against Brito, Brito was having basically 0 success on the striking. He just had to shoot takedowns, and that was the only reason he, like, won 2 rounds on a judge's scorecard. So Hyder wins if he flurries the pocket and just throws caution to the wind. That's the only way he wins. And he can win by knockout, sure. But he hasn't really fought the best UFC comp up until now. And, like, if your win condition is round 1 KO or bust, like, you should be higher than plus 170. I feel like you should be, like, a plus 350. So, for all those reasons, Gomis is the pick. I just think he excels at more facets of MMA than Hyder. Hyder is the Hurricane for a reason. He's going to jump in there and try to, you know, start something. But I just can't go against the Jaguar, man. Until someone knocks him out, I'm going to keep picking him. And this is a, you know, knockout or bust type pick. So all those reasons can be William Gomis, the Jaguar, by decision. Interrupt this broadcast with some news from last week's bets. Let's go ahead and pull up the Bet MMA. So yeah, as you can see right off the bat, -9 units. That is cap. It was more like -1 unit because the parlay you see, 3 units right there. Cejudo and Song to go the distance. It literally went to distance, and I literally won the bet. So that's literally a 8.5 unit swing right there. And Bet MMA is just refusing to help me out. So Henry Cejudo 3 units. I don't regret it. Okay, he looked fine. Melsik 1 unit. That's why I put 1 unit on it, because, you know, he won the first 4 minutes and then gets starched. Andre Philly 3 units. My bad. I bet a low IQ guy. Didn't know what I was getting into. Whoopsie daisy. Brendan Allen, handicap, plus 3.5. That was free. He just needed to win a round, and he won the first round clean. Bashrap by decision. Jeez. Not a good one. Henry Cejudo, plus 5.5 spread. Yes, good bet. Basically just needed to win 1 of the 3 rounds that they fought in, and 2 judges gave him 1 of the rounds. So, bang, bang. Bagdasarian. He had to not get finished. He got finished. All right. Matsumoto, Rob Font. There was multiple times in that fight where the under 2.5 could have easily hit. I just thought the odds we were getting were crazy, plus 240 for an under. But, yeah, that fight was never not going to decision, so let's get back into the picks. And that brings us to the next fight on the main card of UFC Vegas 103. We're talking about Austen Lane taking on Mario Pinto, the People's Heavyweight main event. And in this one, Austen Lane needs to shoot takedowns. He needs to shoot a lot of them in order to even keep this a close fight. Mario Pinto, based on what I've seen, not the most dangerous striker on the feet. He is 6'5", and he does have an 80-inch reach, and he does weigh 245 pounds. But his striking isn't such that it's like Robelos to Spain, where it's 1 punch and they're flatlined. Like, he's more of a war of attrition type fighter, okay? Now, in his Contender Series, yes, he did knock out Lucas Camacho with 1 punch. That was pretty crazy. But if you look at all of his other fights, his 8 other fights, there's a lot of fights there. He's not really starching people, you know? A lot of his fights actually have gone to decision, if you look closely. And the main reason is because the other guy he's fighting is having some success with takedowns. Now, I'm not willing to say that Austen Lane wins this fight. But I am willing to wager that this fight goes over 1.5. And I am willing to wager that Austen Lane actually survives 3 rounds somehow. Okay? Mario Pinto is not the type of guy to just like rush forward and hunt for the KO. He's more like, all right, come on, and he lands something, and then he lands, and then you come in again, and he lands something. Maybe a Mario Pinto like uppercut up the middle as Austen Lane shoots a takedown. That could be a potential thing. But I mean, ultimately, I think Austen Lane will have success with takedowns at first. I think as the fight progresses, Austen Lane will start to gas out a little bit. Mario Pinto will start to take over. Maybe it's going to be similar to the Deniz fight, you know, like he did take down Deniz for 1 round and then got immediately starched in round 2. But I just think that this fight will actually go to distance. Hot take. And for those reasons, I'm taking Mario Pinto, who has multiple decision victories, to win by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Nasrat Haqparast taking on Esteban Ribovics. And usually in a fight like this, where the heavy favorite is 100% a striker, it is sometimes good to take the underdog, because if you're 100% a striker, you have no grappling to go back on, no wrestling, no anything. If you get caught in a firefight, you know, you might get just knocked out because you have no like clinch, you have no nothing, you have no next move besides striking. So if the striking isn't working, you might just straight up lose. So I was thinking that about taking a dog shot on Nasrat for those reasons. The problem with Nasrat as the dog is that he is very similar to Esteban in the fact that he also is not going to shoot takedowns. So it's like, this is a standing battle, okay? Neither guy has any takedowns in their arsenal. Maybe Nasrat has some. Maybe he has some. Camuela Kirk and Loic Radzhabov were able to, you know, make dutiful work of Esteban with takedowns and just control him on the ground. So if I'm Nasrat, you know, Nasrat does have some takedowns in his past, you know, in the way back when, but the game plan here is to probably try to take down Esteban Ribovics because he also has no jiu-jitsu that I know of. So if Nasrat fights that type of game plan, he could potentially find a victory here. But Esteban just has so much aura at this very moment. He has that Gene Silva aura ever since that Sphere fight with Zellhuber. Like, he's just a crazy dog, you know? Like, he's someone that you would want to put money on as an underdog. But as a minus 270 favorite, it gets a little scary. Because the thing about him is he will go out there and fight. Like, he will put himself in dangerous spots to get the finish. But Nasrat, number 1, not a wrestler. Number 2, not a grappler. Number 3, not really a potent finisher. He's more of a decision merchant. And most of the decisions Nasrat has won has been robbery decision victory. So for all those reasons, you got to go with Esteban Ribovics. And if you're going to pick him, you have to go by a finish. So round 2 KO for the Argentinian. Next fight on the card, we have Cody Brundage taking on Julian Marquez in the people's main event of UFC Vegas 103. I cannot wait for this one. I'm glad they put it in the co-main event. I see a lot of people complaining that it's in the co-main event spot, but those people don't know what Cody Brundage or Julian Marquez bring to the table. It's going to be round 1 or 2 finish, and if not, something crazy has went wrong. I mean, Cody Brundage is going to go out there and start shooting for takedowns and swinging. Julian Marquez, lately in all of his fights, his last 3 losses, round 1 KO losses. 3 straight round 1 KO losses. Now, Cody Brundage doesn't have crazy power on his feet, although he has a clean knockout over Tresean Gore years ago. People forget. Brundage does have the age advantage. They are identical in height and reach, which is crazy. Actually, not height, but in reach is crazy. I think Julian Marquez is going to go back to his old ways. All right? If you look back at some tape of Julian Marquez, he was really a submission merchant. It wasn't until recently where he's like, you know what? I'm going to test myself only on the feet. And when he does that, he gets knocked out 3 times in a row. 8 months ago, a year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Knockout loss, knockout loss, knockout loss. Now UFC on a silver platter is like, here's the, you know, one of the worst, but also the best opponents we could find for you to potentially get you a win. Cody Brundage. Cody Brundage, he leaves himself open for subs, and he also leaves himself open to get knocked out. It's hard to trust your money on Cody Brundage, but at plus 155, I wouldn't, you know, scoff at you. He is a very highly picked person. 80% on Tapology have picked Brundage, even though he's a plus 150 underdog. Usually, when that happens, the Tapology underdog wins. So Marquez would actually win this fight 9 out of 10 times based on the past. In this one, I have Marquez by sub because I just think it's going to end in a meme. This fight is not going to end normally. Something bad, something stupid is going to happen to end this fight. I think Brundage is going to get rocked a little bit on the feet. He's going to be like, what the heck? Julian Marquez is rocking me. Shoots for a takedown. Marquez locks up a front choke. That's the prediction. What else do you want from me? These guys are both bottom barrel UFC fighters, and they're the co-main event of this card. That's crazy. It should be a banger of a fight, though. I will be tuned in. I will be there no matter what. Give me Marquez by round 2 meme sub. And that brings me to the main event of UFC Vegas 103. We have Manel Kape taking on Almabaev. Now, in this one, I'm going with Almabaev, sitting at around plus 200 as an underdog. He has the takedowns, and that's basically, I think, all he's going to need to beat Manel Kape in a matchup like this. It is 5 rounds, which is a little scary. You know, trusting a grappler wrestler only to go out there and get takedowns for 5 straight rounds is a little daunting, unless you're Merab. Okay, Merab's a goat for that. But Kape, he just doesn't deal with takedowns very well. Like, against guys who spam takedowns, he doesn't do well. He was able to avoid some takedowns from Nicolau and Perez and all that, but he hasn't really fought like a main wrestler type. And the only person he did that was similar was Muhammad Mokaev, and he lost a very clean decision. Muhammad Mokaev was starting to land good on the feet. That's how potent of a wrestling threat there was. Mokaev was starting to land on the feet, and Mokaev is not known to be a striker. So Almabaev, if he just spams takedowns like he usually does in all his fights, 20 plus takedowns attempts against Jose Johnson, he should win this one. He should start to freeze Manel Kape a little bit. Manel Kape, every time he throws something, Asu is diving in for a leg. That's going to get quite annoying, and that's going to, you know, make Manel Kape start to not strike. Everybody says Manel Kape has the most power in the flyweight division. I haven't seen it. Most of his fights go to decision. And, you know, he is coming off of a knockout 1.5 months ago. But that's against someone who's going to go out there and stand and bang with him. Bruno Silva had no wrestling or grappling to go back on. Bruno Silva was like, oh, I'm a knockout artist too. Let's go knockout for knockout. Asu Almabaev is not that type of guy. All right? The age gap is 0. They're both 31 years old. They're both in the prime of their MMA careers. I just think in a smaller cage like the Apex, you know, there's not a crowd to boo when Almabaev is just swamping on Manel Kape. Smaller cage, and Manel Kape has been frozen by similar wrestlers before. So for all those reasons, and he's plus 250 right now. Crazy. Only reason I wouldn't take Almabaev is because it's short notice. That's the only reason. And it's not even that short notice. It's 2 week short notice. So, and it's in Vegas. So Almabaev was already close by. So all those reasons, I think there's enough there to take the dog shot. Let's take Asu Almabaev by decision. Yes, sir. Now, let's quickly go through the picks just to scan, you know, if I'm an idiot or not. Almabaev, dog number 1. Let's see here. Almabaev, dog number 1. Andrea Lee, dog number 2. Lucas Almeida, dog number 3. Charles Johnson, dog number 4. So for this video, I have picked 4 dogs out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 fights. 4 dogs in 12 fights. Should be an interesting weekend. Thank you for getting to the end of an episode of Finch Chats. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know in the comments who your favorite underdog is this week. I know last week someone said Ricky Simone. What a snipe. You're a savage. And then also someone said Rob Font on a different video. What a snipe. You're a savage. Next time I'll, know you're at my bad. But what a snipe for that one. Let me know this week who you got. Like, comment, subscribe. Have a great one, you savage.